everybody, it is Dean Z speaking to you from room 250 in Hutchins Hall. This is a very special room because I took torts, sat there for torts, evidence, sat there for evidence, also Comtrans, I don't remember where I sat, and property. So, learned a lot in this room. All right, let's get started. Today, I want to talk to you about feedback, speaking of learning, how to get it, why you should want it, and how not to get it. I've been thinking about it because I think this is the time of year, the summer, where people are often seeking feedback related to their law school application journey. So maybe it's because you're at the very beginning of things and you're looking at your proposed materials, or you're thinking about what to say in a personal statement and you have questions. So it'd be nice to get feedback from that. I thought of that because I was on a panel last week with a bunch of other admissions professionals, and at the end we had about 30 minutes of Q&A. And some of the questions I saw coming in through the chat, I looked at them and I thought, I hope they don't ask me that because it's really hard. And the answer I have to give might not be taken well by the person who is asking the question. And it made me feel self-conscious to imagine doing that on a webinar context. And then similarly, you might want feedback because you're at the end of your law school application process and you're thinking what went wrong, what went right, why did I get in here and didn't get in there? And I thought of that because we got a, let's say, quirky voicemail message when we came back from the holiday weekend from someone who had been waitlisted and then denied and was unhappy about it, and left a pretty long voicemail message demanding that we call back and give him a clear and civil explanation of our decision-making process. You can imagine how much that seemed like a great conversation to have. I actually, just for like full disclosure, I did call that person back, and they did not return my call, didn't pick up and didn't return my call. So I guess the urge for the feedback passed. But I'm a big fan of feedback, and I think it will. And I think it's a particularly important skill to master, both getting and receiving it, if you're going to be a lawyer. I actually had a pretty good conversation with our incredible director of career planning, Ramji Kaul, to ask him if he had any input on this topic. And he likes to talk about things in terms of a growth mindset, which is the kind of buzz phrase that he masters and that I typically don't. I love them. I love those kinds of phrases. Anyway, Ramji is saying, you know, as part of being a professional, you really have to have a growth mindset. You have to be constantly striving to improve, and getting feedback from others is a big part of that. So, let's talk about my first example when I was on this panel and people were asking some questions that I didn't want to give. Why didn't I want to give the answers? Because I didn't know the people, and it was going to be, you know, not happy information. I wasn't going to be able to say like, oh, don't worry about that. Or here's this quick fix. It was going to be like, this is going to be a little bit of a problem for you. Here's some ideas on how to handle it. But, you know, it wasn't going to be happy news. So you really need to have, in order to get honest feedback, direct feedback, actionable feedback, you really need to have a trust relationship with the person from whom you're seeking the feedback. The same goes for the caller who wanted the assessment. He started off his message made him sound quite unhappy, angry to begin with. So nobody wants to have that conversation where someone's going to be unhappy with them. It isn't designed to elicit truth from the person who you're talking to. So that's my first piece of advice. This won't come quickly or easily. You have to invest in relationships, because to get feedback requires that someone invest in you. So you first have to invest in developing the relationship. So that means, you know, getting to know someone well, whether it is, you know, it could be, and I also want to say it doesn't have to be a dean of admissions or an employer or a faculty member. Those are all good people maybe to get feedback from, but it can also be, you know, a wise friend or relative, someone whose judgment you think is really good. You know, develop that relationship and make it clear to them that you want this feedback. Ask explicitly for it in ways large and small. When you get it, listen to it patiently, maybe ask follow-up questions, but don't argue about it, really try to take it in. And I think the big thing is to go slowly and just recognize that it is sort of a process to develop this kind of relationship. Also, you should be looking for signals that you need feedback. So, for example, this was an example that Dean Call from our career planning office gave me. He said, you're working for a law firm, you get a writing assignment, you turn it in, and you never get a second writing assignment from that person. That's a sign that you maybe need to get a little feedback on how the first assignment went. There are many examples from earlier in a lawyer's career. So say you have 10 interviews, that you do interviews, you get called back, you do 10 callback interviews, and you don't get any offers. That's a sign they liked your credentials enough to call you back in, but then you didn't get the job. That's a sign that maybe you need a little feedback on your interview process. Now, you're not going to be able to get that in most cases from the employer who didn't make you the offer, but if you're at a law school or wherever, where you have a career planning person who you're working with, that person can maybe give you the feedback based on their conversations with you, or can even be the bridge to getting feedback for the employer. So if you call an employer and say, why didn't you give me the job? Chances are you're not going to get a call back. But if the career planning person says, hey, Joe Smith interviewed with you, you didn't make him an offer, totally fine, but I'm just curious if you give any feedback that I could help, Joe by giving to him. That might be, a way you get the feedback. Or even earlier in your life when you are applying to law schools, if you put out 10 applications and you don't get into any of these schools, you need some feedback. Maybe you were targeting the wrong schools, or maybe there's something glaring in your application that you didn't pick up on that the schools were seeing. That is also an opportunity for feedback. So I think all these impulses, these people who are asking questions, tough questions in the webinar, or the person who called us and asked to know why we hadn't admitted them, these are all incredibly, I think, good impulses to ask for that information. But you have to do it in a context where you can get the answers that are going to be really helpful for you. And that requires a time and investment of developing a relationship. All right, I hope that's useful, and hopefully I can fill some of the gap here with the questions that you leave for us. Speaking of, Dustin has suggested a couple of questions that need to get answered from our YouTube comments, so let's turn to that. Hannah asks, any advice for splitters, specifically LSAT, high splitters, low GPA? Yes, I do. My first piece of advice is check out the episode that I did on medians in my last season, which will tell you a lot about how law schools approach just that one little bit of your application having to do with numbers. Bottom line, though, the advice is look for schools where their median is at or below your LSAT score. That's a school where you have a pretty good shot of getting in, because LSAT scores are finite in terms of how many high LSAT scores there are in the world in any given season. So if you have a high one, schools are, they don't have as many to choose among as they do among high GPAs. So you're in a good position. So I think you're in good shape with that. Same advice for the high GPA splitter, but it's a little trickier because there are more high GPAs in the pool than there are high LSATs. So just bear that in mind. But of course, none of this is like do or die on the numbers. All the other elements of your application are incredibly important, particularly when you are a splitter, or when you're under on both numbers too. So make the most of all those other opportunities that schools give you to present your information. Okay, second question is from Dev, and it's a good, I think, pairing with the high LSAT question, because Dev asks, basically he had a couple of early years in college that were rough. He took a year, gap year to work or do some other things, and then when he came back, he was ready to go, and his last 2 years were very strong, and he ended with a very high GPA. That's great. I think schools love to see that story. I mean, I love a redemption story, and I do not think I am alone in this. So I would say you are in good shape, feel encouraged, and most readers will pick up on what happened here, but I think it is worth adding an addendum, just 2 or 3 sentences saying this is what happened, very straight to the point, just making sure that no one will miss it and miss the significance of that gap here in what you were doing. So good luck to both of you, and for those of you who have questions like that, please don't forget to send them along. Okay, now let's turn quickly to language, specifically the word esquire. You may or may not know that sometimes attorneys put esquire at the end of their name to denote that they are a lawyer. I'm not really sure what the origin of why it came to denote attorneys, where that came from, because it actually is from England. I guess I looked this up. It's like the oldest son of the youngest son of a peer or something is supposed to be the esquire. Really doesn't have anything to do with the United States, and it's weird. And it is particularly weird if you are a lady lawyer, such as myself, because it is referring to the male. It's like a completely male thing. And yeah, just don't do it, is what I'm going to say. I think it is dumb and out of date and looks weird. So when you become lawyers, please do not attach esquire or ESQ to the end of your name. Let's just get rid of that. Work with me on this, okay? Thanks. Spread the word. Anyway, okay, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for watching. Please give us more questions in the comments below, or send us an email to law.jd.admissions@umich.edu and put vlog in the subject line. And thank you, as always, to Dustin Johnston, who carried really heavy equipment today up into this pretty steamy classroom. I'm very grateful to you. Everybody else, wherever you go, go blue.